Hi, Jason. Your microphone's turned off.
How about now?
Oh, you're good.
Okay, excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good to see you again. How's the baby?
He's doing fantastic.
He
He's
looks
staying on
cute.
my toes.
He looks cute.
I can't believe how much he's grown in such, the time that they do, but it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always fast. It's always interesting, and they're so cute at that age, so you just enjoy your time with them.
Yeah, and that's why we do what we do and
Yeah,
say,
you do.
hey,
Yeah, exactly. Savor every day. Don't let anything get you down. Don't let anything take your power.
awesome. Well, I know I have a few people that are really pumped about this conversation we're going to have. So I'm going to link it into Facebook Live.
Okay.
I'm gonna, let's hope they work this out. Okay. I believe, let's see what we got.
See if you see if you get it going.
Okay. Believe we are going live in a second. Let's see.
I think it is. Yeah, it looks good. I just saw it flash up.
Fantastic. Yay. So is it showing up live on Facebook as we speak?
Pretty sure it is. I just saw it flash up in the corner.
Okay. Because I'm on my page and I'm just not seeing it. Let's see. Still getting used to this techie stuff.
Oh yeah, guaranteed. Maybe I'll try and go over and see if it's on your page too.
Yep, we got it. We're on. We're live. We're good.
We're
Awesome.
good?
Fantastic. We are live.
Okay.
Yay.
And you can see me.
I can. We are good to go. Now I just need to find out where you are on this mic. Fantastic. Yay. Figured this.
Okay. There you go. You got it, Tanya.
I did. I'm happy. So friends who are not aware who Jason is, you guys have a really special treat for you. He is a husband, a father, a self-sabotage coach, a truth teller. And what drew me to your page, Jason, years ago was how boldly you spoke about vaccines. And when I started following you on that topic and you started the conversation and you opened up, let's say, Pandora's box, if you will, on symbolism and how important the language of symbolism is. And it is literally the hidden language that we're being spoke to every single day. But if we're not aware of it, it can kind of take our lives over. And I really want to dive into this topic with you because a lot of people, as you know, are waking up at a rapid rate right now. And they don't really know where to go to ask the questions. They know something is off. They know something's not right. But like anything that we do, we have to get to the root of the issue. And symbolism holds a lot of that power. So I'm going to pass it over to you. And I really want to just start this conversation off with, how did you start to become aware of this in your own life? And how did you start learning about the symbolism and the rulers that be that are really truly ruling this whole game here? So I'm going to pass it over to you.
That's a short question and answer. Well, what I did is how I stumbled across this. I was really a messy human myself, with at one time with narcotics and alcohol and junk food, and basically living it's sort of like a satanic lifestyle. Now, I'm not religious, and that word did fit my lifestyle very clearly. I was very abusive, sadistic, and it was only maybe a decade later that I found out that I was like being impacted or sort of programmed the entire time from the first day I was on this planet. And I found out that the programming techniques were some of them were simple, some of them were complex, but I got into it further because I was also a health and, say, nutrition coach. And none of my clients could never become their best. And so they need to lose 50 pounds, they might have lost 20, and then they scurry back like scared children that saw the boogeyman. And I'm a logical person. I would say, like, why do you want to be heavier? Why do you want to be diseased? Why do you want to be tired all the time? Why don't you want to be your best? If you don't like your job, why don't you start a business? Even though you talk about it and you have books in the house about it, why aren't you taking action on it? And if you don't like your mate, why don't you try and improve your marriage, or even get out of your marriage and do something else? And then I started to fumble into psychology. So it starts off as, documented psychology, where you can manipulate people, not even manipulate them because you have the power. You're manipulating them because you've discovered that there's actually two parts of the brain. And that's where the symbology really comes in. And I'm not a symbol expert, but psychology, like I teach self-sabotage coaches around the world and qualify them to be their own self-sabotage coaches. So we're dealing with people that have been psychologically programmed to be their worst. So we have to know a lot about psychology and how they got programmed to embrace their worst lives, and then how to reprogram them using the same psychology so they can start being sort of unafraid to be wealthy, healthy, and wise. And all this psychological manipulation that people will probably be really interested in. And you could go on for days about it, but it comes down to the same knowledge. And this knowledge you could use for good. That's the irony, is that if you know about this part of the brain, which we do as self-sabotage coaches, we actually we use the same technology that the people who rule us, they use it to make us, really messy humans and disempowered. And we use the same technology to make people healthy, wealthy, and wise. And whether it's us using the same psychology to make someone better, or they're using symbols and the same technology through movies and media to make people like addicts or overweight or trusting of their doctors when, medical doctors are not experts in health. It's pretty obvious they're not. But how do you get a person to go in and ask for poison and think they're going to be healthy? And then how do you even graduate a doctor who hands out poison and have that person believe that they're health experts when they can't make anybody healthy? How do you actually create that situation? And then when you get into the psychology, you figure it out. It's very, very easy. And it has to do with the subconscious mind, a very large part of our brain that it operates without our awareness, sort of like our heart or our menstrual cycle. We're not in control of it. And this part of the brain is in control of our behavior. And there's particular ways it generates our behavior. And so if someone's out there and says, I'm in control of my behavior, I don't know if we're going to be able to roll that video to maybe even use it as a backdrop about how little the average person knows. Do you want to try and share it? I don't know if we're allowed to share it while we're talking. What do you think?
The one that you just sent me?
Yeah, the one I just sent you is a video by, I think his name's Williams. It's on Netflix. It's called Magic for Humans. And it's riddled with mind control on its own, but he's also sort of a mentalist or a mind control expert. He knows how images and symbols really impact the audience. So I don't know if you can try to share that, because it'll give us a very good idea of what I'm talking about. And if we can't,
I can always post a link and people can take a look at.
yeah, maybe people should post the link, because just post the link up and maybe they can just watch it, because this sort of, basically this magician is like many other magicians, and a lot of people don't get exposed to these videos because they'll drop your jaw, they'll fry your brain watching how. So that magician, I don't remember his first name, but it's Williams, and they think he's kind of lame. He brings in like 3 really hip and cool Instagrammers, and he's pretending to ask them how to get a lot of likes on his photos. He's pretending like he's a lame duck. And then he flips over the photos of his kid, and, just some really random photos that to teenagers are going to be super lame. And then he says, well, why don't you go into this environment where I'm filming, and everybody take me your best Instagram shot, right? And you know what? And then they take about 10 shots, and then he says, okay, go down your phone. So there's 3 of them. They all took 10 of their best shots. He says, go down to your best one and put the phone down on your lap. And then he goes, would it happen to be you all took it in the swing, biting an ice cube tray in the watermelon room? And they all looked at each other and they all put their phones over and they took the exact same photo. Everybody had the exact same photo. They sat on a swing in a watermelon room, biting the corner of an ice cube tray. And he had programmed that into their minds, simply by flipping those lame pictures. He knew exactly what he was doing. They thought they had the upper hand. He's a master of the subconscious mind. He always had the upper hand. And that is exactly what goes on when you watch CNN or Avengers Infinity War or Bad Moms or Dirty Grandpa or Aliens, or any of these movies are loaded with that sort of subconscious mind hacking. And people think that they're thinking when they're only reacting. He hacked their mind in 4 minutes.
Wow.
And they all behaved exactly the same. And they thought, I'm smart, I'm young, I'm brilliant. My taste in Instagram photos, I'm going to show this lame old man. I got a drink of water here. Hold on.
Good.
So very interesting that the more confident and cocky too that these young people are, that they have no idea that they're going to be hacked. Now, the reason he hacked is the subconscious mind is like the most powerful computer in the world, and it's separate from your conscious mind. You have no idea what it's doing, but what it does is it scans your environment, and its job is basically to look at everything. It doesn't know the difference between a screen and real life. And basically the photos that the magician was showing was on his iPad. And the subconscious mind scans the environment. And what's odd about the subconscious, it doesn't even know what anything is. It doesn't know what a car is. It doesn't know what a cup of coffee is. It doesn't know what a glass of wine is, but it still categorizes them as similar things. And what its job is to do is to add up similar images, similar patterns, similar beliefs, similar ideas, and whatever's the most repetitive, it becomes sort of graduated into your behavior as the safe thing to say, the safe thing to do, the safe thing to believe, the safe shoes to wear, the safe things to eat. And it's been shown, if you're born into a cult that bites the head off live bats for breakfast, the subconscious will copy it right away.
Absolutely.
Just to fit in. And so that part of the brain is what's hacked in these videos. And what I'll do for your people is I'll send three of my best videos that if anybody watches them, and sometimes it's very important to disarm people when you're talking like this, and the three videos will disarm them. It will prove in a millisecond, or like in these, not milliseconds, but minutes,
Yeah.
that the average person has no idea how the brain works. And then it's easier to accept this sort of explanation. Like the number one symbol, because again, the subconscious mind doesn't know what anything is. It just knows the shape of something, and it knows its repetitive use inside your, your field of your sight. So the most common symbol in movies, and it's always within the first 15, and I've never seen a movie without this object within the first 15 or 20 minutes. It's a cup of coffee. And if you knew anything about coffee, you would understand why it's there. And if you knew anything about the subconscious mind and how it reacts to repetitive images as the safe behavior to act out, coffee and all caffeine cuts blood flow to the brain by 52%. So if you think life's hard, think about trying to deal with it with only half a brain. And then second, caffeine is what's called an alkaloid poison. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that the people who rule over you have known this for hundreds of years. They used to do it with tea. So they used to be famous for tea time. And the reason they love infusing the slave class with caffeine is because caffeine's an alkaloid poison and there's many other plants that use caffeine as a pesticide. It's not just the coffee plant. So it'll infuse its leaves with caffeine, because if a bug eats that, they'll die. That's how poisonous caffeine is. And then the coffee plant will drop its pods all around the periphery in an attempt to kill the competing foliage. Caffeine is a poison. It's meant to kill bugs. And when it enters the human system through the digestive tract, it does poison you. And it sets off what's called the fight or flight response that has various metabolic cascades inside your metabolism. But in the neurological system, caffeine shuts off your prefrontal cortex, which is your high IQ, loving, compassionate, ambitious, independent, evolutionary part of the brain. They call this the what? The temple. And they've known if the prefrontal cortex is fully engaged when you're at peace, that's what the meditation does. The temple starts to connect to maybe the Godhead, or whatever you want to call it. You can get some ideas coming to you that you're not thinking them up.
Yeah, I mean, it ties in so many things that you're talking about. And the first is when people say, well, how can I learn more? And really the truth is you have to come to your own self-discovery of your self-sabotaging behavior. I mean, I think that's first and foremost, because you can't wake up to what's happening out there until you wake up to what's happening in here.
Exactly.
And not only that, but now you're talking about other topics that are really interesting, and it's how the media and Hollywood places these programs. That's why it's called, television program. I mean, they say it right in front of our faces exactly what it is. So you mentioned that Hollywood and the media really starts to impart their it's really an agenda at the end of the day, true sinister agenda. And if your brain is not healthy, if you will, it's really easy to get programmed by what this agenda is. And we're talking about the brain, and you're right, like so many people just don't know how powerful the brain works. I mean, we're talking about, there's a war on our minds right now. And when you have the discernment, and that's really, I think, a big weapon these days, and that many people just are not having is discernment and critical thinking. You're not able to take in those types of thinking skills because your brain is just warped by like you said, the caffeine and all of the things that we feed our mind. And trauma is one thing I definitely like to touch base with you on, because that really truly is the root of the compartmentalization of our mind, if you will. That literally breaks down the way that we think. And as you know, the system that we're born into is already set up for trauma, for a life full of trauma and control. So let's elaborate on that. I think people would really want to hear that.
Well, I think people should understand that when I talk about caffeine, and I will finish the caffeine story, it applies to any poison, so that they don't think there's a difference between the birth control pill and caffeine, or an Oreo cookie and chocolate milk, or pizza and Joe Louis, or something like this. Because when you poison the system, you only have one fight or flight reaction. So whether your life is threatened by a mugger or your life's threatened by getting chased by a pit bull, you have the same reaction if you put poison on the inside. So poisoning your metabolism threatens your lifespan. So the fight or flight system isn't about defense against an intruder, it's about a threat against the lifespan. So when you do poison yourself with anything, even putting your cell phone in your pocket and having, you know, the miniature blasts of Wi-Fi radiation zipping through your body, you still get a fight or flight response. You can draw the blood and you can see that, you know, Wi-Fi radiation causes a fight or flight activation. So when you're in fight or flight, you go to a different part of the brain. It's called the limbic part. It's either sometimes called the reptilian brain, or the R complex, or the hind brain. And that is notoriously low IQ. And it's looking for quick solutions, childlike solutions. It has no ability to judge long-term consequences. And it's because you're injured at that point. Like when you poison yourself, you're injured. Your fight or flight is a system that screams out, I need some help. So whether you're getting attacked by a pit bull or a mugger, the instinct is, I need group safety. That's what people have to understand, is when you poison yourself, it activates a part of the brain that's obsessed with group safety. And the reason your human farmers are polluting you with caffeine and every other poison under the sun, Teflon, birth control pill, aspirin, Motrin, you know, fluoride in the tap water. The reason they're poisoning you, you know, back into the Stone Age is because you're very group compliant and herd based when you're toxic and sick. That's when chemically you're screaming out, I need group enforcement. I can't make it on my own. So when you roll out fabricated events like the COVID-19, the reason people are, you know, hurting and complying and being reflexively obedient, you could never get this reaction 500 years ago, people eating healthy food. They would know right away. And they would be loading their shotguns and say, government, you're lying. I know you're lying. I got my prefrontal cortex on. I'm smart enough to figure this out. But if you're in the limbic brain, it's low IQ, it's childlike, it's looking for authority to save the day. It doesn't have the confidence it can take care of things. It's a short-term thinker. If things 5 or 10 or 15 minutes down the road, it's the part of the brain that says, yeah, take all my freedoms so I feel safer at night. And it's the way the child brain works. So the reason we're getting infiltrated with all these toxins, and the reason the coffee is the #1 symbol for the subconscious mind to scan through all Hollywood media, is to prep the populace, the collective, to be herd-based, to be more like cattle. And even that's what vaccination means. Like vacca is Latin for cow. So vaccination is even a word that means cow nation. And they're on the couch, which is another derivative of cow, sort of a lazy way to lounge, couch. And this is the kind of stuff people don't realize. There's hidden meanings in the language. And the second most popular symbol inside TV and movies is alcohol consumption and child-based behavior in adult years. So if you were to take the average Will Ferrell movie, the story of Ricky Bobby, Elf, and you can see this is getting targeted in the way the subconscious mind again scans. And if it sees repetitive images, if it sees men that aren't strong, skinny men, weak men, feminized men, the subconscious is literally a supercomputer in the basement of your brain. It has a concrete floor over it. There is a door to it. You can pull it all you want. It's locked. You'll never get down there. So what it does again is it scans your environment. There's drilled holes through that concrete floor, just like about this big, and your subconscious scans the environment, and they've measured it, scans the environment at 11 million pieces of information per second. The part of the brain I'm talking with right now can only handle information at 140 pieces of information per second. That part of the brain is always scanning, kind of standing proudly, trying to tell you, I'm here to make you safe. I'm going to scan what's common, and this is what we're going to do. I'm going to push the behavior up through the concrete floor, almost in a fortune cookie fortune. You're going to read it. You won't even know where it came from. And if I'm a guy, it'll be like, act like a girl to get along in society. And you're like, okay, how are you? And okay, so there's all these agendas inside, or have a coffee. Like that'll be just pushed up through the floor. You won't even know. I guarantee you, no one listening to this could name one coffee scene in cinema at all. Maybe Harry Met Sally when they're sitting there drinking coffee with the orgasm scene. Maybe. But if you even go to the trailers with the movie Mom and Dad with Nicolas Cage, if anybody wants to go right now. And that's a movie about a mom and dad getting infected by a virus that makes them kill their own children. And if you know how the subconscious mind works, you're going to realize that the subconscious mind too doesn't care what it like there's no morality filter with the subconscious. It doesn't say, oh, this is a really weird movie. Nicolas Cage is trying to kill his kid with a sledgehammer. It doesn't say that. It scans it and says, is this common? Should we be doing this? I mean, it's a real kind of a stud part of the brain. It takes it all in, and the violence against children in Hollywood movies will elicit a violent-based male or female who will elicit violence against children. And there's so many themes like this. So when you talk about symbolic control, all the control is inside the TV screen and the movie screen, hacking our subconscious mind, because it is hackable. It could be hackable for good. It's hackable for bad. It's based on the repetitive messages that it downloads.
Well, let's talk about, how gentle the mind is. And, one thing that I know many parents are going to like to hear about the truth is about Disney.
Oh.
Right? I mean, that right there is prepping children for mind control. And it sounds kind of conspiracy theoristy if you talk about mind control, but again, people have to go back to what mind control is, and that there has been experiments done on the mind. And Disney has definitely played into a role that comes off as this happy land that, children love to be at. But when in fact, there's a really dark underbelly there. And, I loved Disney growing up. Well, who didn't? But, talking about the one thing that I did learn on your page that you brought up about Disney was how there's always one parent missing. One parent is always usually dead in a Disney movie.
This is a guarantee. You can definitely look at, you can even look it up. You can go to Google and you can type in Disney movies with absent parent. And it's usually, number one, the reason they're doing that is nothing scares a child more than losing a parent, especially in the child. So there's a huge list of Disney movies, Bambi, big friendly giant. There's so many of them. It's hard, and then that normalizes it. So of course the parents who've watched it, they have a subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind will normalize anything that it's seen on a repetitive basis. But it scares the child, puts them into the flight or fight sort of mode when one parent is dead or both parents are dead or they're in the stewardship of a guardian. And then that scares the child right away. Like Dumbo, I think the mom dies. Bambi, the mom dies. And it's more traumatic to lose a mom than a father. And then the Lion King, the son loses the dad. Scar kills the dad, sets up the death. This terrorizes the human brain. And it's been shown that your fight or flight system, which is just behind your ear, they've shown that if the fight or flight system is too activated, the skull starts to deform in the back, leading for a greater amount of brain tissue in the limbic system. But that's your minister of defense. That's a violent part of the brain, highly illogical, highly irrational, quick to rage, quick to violence. You can see why they're always trying to overactivate the fight or flight system, because it makes us herd-like and gives us a pack animal mentality, so that when they come and scare us with their false flag events, whether it's, everybody knows what they are. And if you touch on the false flag events of the day, the herd behavior will come out. Like I can't even mention that people are being played right now because the herd-based mentality is to attack anybody who's sort of not in the herd. That's what herd-based mentality is we got our strength and everybody else is the enemy. And it's really easy to divide and conquer the people when you have them in fear. So if they're chronically in fear as well, you lose your ability to identify what you should be really afraid of, which is your own government, which is colluding with Hollywood, which is colluding with CNN, and they driving the subconscious mind control, the symbolism, because the subconscious mind actually doesn't even speak language. It works on symbols. Because
they know that, and
oh,
they know that,
totally know that.
And that's why having and learning symbolism is truly the root of uncovering all of these truths. Because once you learn the symbolism, you can see it everywhere, and okay, this company, I see what this company is about. I'm gonna not go and support them. And then you see it in the cartoons with the children's cartoons, and you see it in businesses in your local community. So once I feel that you awaken to the symbols and you learn that, you really can see how much the evil has implemented in every sector of our society.
There's some real big evil going on. And if you know symbolism, like I've looked over the WHO, the World Health Organization, they have, and people don't even understand this. If they don't understand the symbols, they're not going to be able to guess properly at what, is it evil or if it's good. And if it's an evil symbol, through the secret societies and the mystery schools, they're taught the symbolism so they can pick out places that they shouldn't go into, or they know the intent of the organization. The caduceus is a medical symbol. It's on most medical kind of icons. The caduceus is the doubled helix around, it's supposed to be the spine with the wings on the side. The wings are supposed to represent the sun. They would say a winged chariot crosses this sky every day, drawing the sun. So the wings are usually meaning the sun. And the caduceus is the double helix, what controls life. And it's supposed to be the interplay or the dancing of the male and the female so that life can prosper. I mean, the medical system should not have that as their icon, but they certainly do. But that's what it means. So again, male and female are needed for life, and so is the sun. If you don't have male and female, there is no life. You could have a guy and a girl down here. They could try to reproduce, but if the sun's gone, you also have no life. So it's a life symbol. And symbol actually means similar to the bull. That's what symbol means, similar to the bull. And it's the bull cult that is behind all this. It's a very, very ancient cult, a cult of Molech, they call it. If you want to see what Molech is, it's Molech. You probably don't want to look that up because you'll start understanding who's in control here. But if you go over to the World Health Organization, knowing the symbology, you'll see they have a single caduceus, which means they have one snake, no sun, and only one side of the helix, which means, and from my symbology research, that just means male. So it means the female's out, there is no sun. It's a pure evil symbol that everybody who's evil is well aware that it's a genocidal, euthanasia-based symbol. That's what that symbol is. And even caduceus, if you know word magic, Ka is Egyptian for spirit, and it was always Ka. So they hide it as Ca at the front of caduceus. Caduce, to, us. Caduceus. So Ka meaning spirit, Deus meaning to see with the eyes, in us. Caduce, see us, means for you to see me as a human, you need two, and you need the spirit. And you go over to the who symbol, you see a single spiraling serpent with no sun, which means one of the genders are looking to be extinguished by this evil cult. And they've always sort of dreamed about this. Elizabethan times, I call this the Elizabethan agenda, because in Elizabethan times, when they used to do Shakespeare, if there was a female required, who would play it? Do you know this? That it was only men.
It would be a transgendered role, right?
Yeah, it was always transgender role. So if it was a female role, it would be a feminized male, or a male would fill that female role, and then there was regular males. And this cult loves that sort of stuff because they're into inversion. They're into the opposite of absolutely everything that stands for life.
And, this is something you're talking about. So, when people talk about where do I learn more, and someone just reached out to me, I said, you know what? I go back to the Old Testament, honestly, because it's all right there. And, this knowledge has led me back to my faith, because when you learn about these truths, you're like, how is this evil existing? Oh, yeah. And this isn't been around for just our time. I mean, this is centuries and centuries old cult-like behavior that's been happening, that's been in our faces ever since, like the biblical times. So it's just taken a different form today.
Yeah, and people, I'm not religious at all, but if you study this, you can't help but notice that there's a good side. It's a little weak right now. It's being beaten out of the people through the Hollywood movies. Mm-hmm. And there's an evil side, and it almost seems like any sort of religious belief, that there are dark forces controlling really dumb and probably malnourished and evil humans. And then there's good spirits, seems to be puppeteering people like myself. I hope I could put myself in that category. And even the word media is from the word Medes. There was a group in the Middle East, in the Middle East, and that's why it's called Mediterranean, and mediation, okay? Media, medical, it all starts with MED. People don't understand where that came from. The Medes were a group in sort of the Mediterranean that were masters of this psychology, that you can control someone's behavior through what they see. And the kings and queens of the day would come over and hold counsel with them and saying, I want to pretty well be king forever. I want to steal their money and power without them knowing. And they would teach them how to do that through the eyes, through ceremonies, public square ceremonies. They didn't have TV screens or movie screens, but they would hold the public square ceremonies, and the imagery would be driven in that way. Even media, the first two phonetic, kind of sounds in media is me, die. And then A is the first letter of the alphabet, which usually symbolizes the male. The A is the phallus or the penis, and 0 is the womb or the female. So media really translates to me die by the female, I mean, by the male. People don't even know this. And then medical, me die, col, medical. It's not cal. No one says, I'm going to the Medi-Cal system. They say, I'm going to the medical. I'm going to the medical doctor.
Pulling.
Culling. And that's what the Medes would be masters at, is poison the people, pretending it's going to be medication or healthy pharmaceuticals. And pharmaceutical, again, is named after the pharaoh, because the pharaoh was amazing at sort of getting this all going to retain power. You would poison the people through the medical system, triggering their limbic brain and their herd-like mentality and their low IQ. And the media system would give them the repetitive images, the repetitive messages, where they would go down to the Pharaonic coffee shop or whatever was going on 3,000 years ago and vomit forth basically whatever was inserted into their mind. And that's why the symbol is on the back of the American dollar bill. It's an eye with light coming out of it. And that just means he who controls the light controls the programming. You can't program a human in the dark, because it has to be thrown into the subconscious through the eye. And so that's why there's an eye that,
Sorry. That's why they are doing their tricks in broad daylight.
They have to do their tricks in broad daylight. They have to report it. It has to be filmed. And, you know, that's why CBS is the all-seeing eye, and CBS is not the letter C, it's SEE, CBS, see bullshit. and that's what it is. And it's the bull cult, because the ancients would know that the bull cult was the one of mastering all this through the eye technology and poisoning people back into the Stone Age to make them compliant sheep. If you came in as a liar and there was a awake person, if the person was awake, they'll be like, that's bullshit, because that meant it was from the bull cult. You're a bully, or he's firing bullets. Bull. Everything that has bull in front of it is, you know, reflective of that bull cult and their obsession with, you know, basically it's like a form of invisible black magic, because there is nothing, like when I put on the show, even go to the trailer, if anybody wants to go to the movie trailer, Dirty Grandpa with Robert De Niro and Zac Efron, but buffer your brain, because your subconscious will take it in and say, hey, look, it's a hedonistic cult we live in right now. So
it is. And, you know, like another one of the programming that, you know, definitely had my mind consumed was the show Sex and the City. You know, I lived in New York City for a long time, worked in the fashion industry, and that was my life and the programming. And then I'm like, wow, I look back now as I became more clear in my mind. I'm like, wow, how much that show had so much programming on my mind.
definitely. And it's one show, but the theme, the subconscious mind doesn't know. I think there was Carrie, and there's some other, I think I remember a bit of that show. I think I watched the movie once.
It's about, you know, because you're talking about, I think the agenda here is also to split up the family unit, right?
100%.
That's their goal here. And when you have independent thinking, career driven, fashion wearing, drink in the hand wearing women, it looks so fabulous. But at the end of the day, it's really destroying the need to have a male around.
Guaranteed. The males have been feminized in the same way as well. The females have been, you know, given male traits. I think this is when I see the caduceus as the single coiling serpent. I believe it was an agenda all along by an evil force to try and get women believing they're strong and independent, which they can be. But when this evil force comes to feast on those single women, I think they will realize they always needed their men around, and it would be a great time to be paired up. I think that single woman, tough, I don't need no man. I believe the women are walking headlong into an ambush that they know nothing about. And I've studied this a million different ways for 15 years, and it's not a knock against women at all, but I know the ruling groups we're dealing with, and they would love the great female sorceress, the giver of life, to be absent of her male protective counterpart and to be pretty well alone in an ambush. And so so not only was it to split up the family unit for the strength and sort of produce dysfunctional children that are again afraid because they don't know where their security is coming from. I think there's something else, another shoe to drop, because that single caduceus means one of the genders is missing.
Yep.
And you know, if I'd rather be me, the male, because males are sort of like that, but I have this odd feeling because it's a male-based cult, and they're into a lot of pedophilia, men on boy sexuality. So when I see the single caduceus, it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
And you're bringing up a whole other topic about the pedophilia among these people. And this is something that I have talked about greatly on my page, and that something that I could not ever stay silent about, because this is the one way we have definitely been disconnected from the truth. And it's, how are these people engaging in the acts that they do? And they're actually rulers of our country and our world, essentially. And that's going to be a whole other topic. But, you know, talking about the pedophilia, I mean, no one wants to touch that. No one wants to talk about it. You know, I think, were one of the only people that started to really bring this to light out of all of the truth speakers out there now, because I think a lot of people are more aware about this, but no one wants to touch it. And everyone just wants to shove it under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist, when in fact it is the most rampant issue I think we have in our society today.
It's a guarantee, but to get people this weak where they will actively turn away from protecting children, that's where the Hollywood programming comes as well, is because it's programmed people to distract themselves and tranquilize themselves and weaken themselves through intoxication and sedation and tranquilization with various narcotics. And, you know, this is what sort of self-sabotage is based on, is, you know, you're going to be attacked if you're not in the herd. So everybody kind of works 24 hours a day, getting drunk or smoking weed or watching movies or just being a really messy human, because if you're not messy in that really huddled mass, people are like, hey, he's not part of the cult. So we're all sort of getting initiated into this cult, whether we like it or not. We try to drag our feet along the ground and our fingernails across the soil. But as a male, when I arrived on this death cult, what I call Planet Mental Asylum, they basically circumcised me, took 30% of my penis off, no anesthetic. My parents volunteered for that. If my parents would have said cut his ears off, they would say, oh my God, you're so cruel. Cut his penis off. No problem, sir. We'll have him out in about 15 minutes.
That breaks down to the boys with the trauma-based mind control. It starts right there at the circumcision.
Yeah, and it weakens them, and it makes them afraid, and it makes their limbic system hyperactive, which means it doesn't shut off. If your limbic system is hyperactive, you know, from bad movies or bad food or from the circumcision, it's just like skipping a rock across a PTSD pond, right? PTSD pond in our society is, when the circumcision wears off, they're going to inject you with the aluminum-based vitamin K. And then when the vitamin K wears off, they're going to put the aluminum-based and mercury-based vaccines in you. Then your mother doesn't breastfeed because she doesn't know too much about what's going on. And then you're going to have the soya-based formula that's also full of aluminum. So you just keep getting pounded in this death cult mentality and this death cult philosophy, where you're just petrified on the inside, you're petrified on the outside, and you're just ruled as this fearful, compliant slave who's purposely uninformed too. And even if you were informed, if you're in the limbic system has no interest in education, because it just wants to be safe. Like, why be like, why read a book about vaccines when you're going to vaccinate anyway, because you can't take the pressure when you don't. Like,
Exactly.
most people are vaccinating because they're afraid not to. They've never researched. They don't have any books in their house about vaccines, and they don't have any books in their house about vaccines because what the truth is inconsequential. When you're scared, you just go along with the herd. And that's the biggest benefit our human farmers have for keeping us in chemical and media fear, is because we won't research anything. Like, if they told someone today, if they announced on CNN that if you slathered peanut butter up your ass crack, you'd be more immune to COVID-19, there'd be a peanut butter shortage and people walking around with very awkward gaits, walking gaits. And this is the sort of mentality that I try to highlight and tell people how their subconscious brain works. Like, if you're thinking the government's your friend, like, 11 million people die from junk food every year in the world. 57 million people die on this planet every year. 11 million by junk food, 7 million by cigarettes, 3 million by alcohol. They're all for sale. Everything's locked down because there's 400,000 padded and fabricated COVID deaths. Like, if you told someone, why don't we shut down McDonald's? It kills 11 million per year. If someone says, don't care. What about cigarettes killing 7 million? Don't care. What about alcohol? Don't care. What about car accidents injure 4.4 million people per year? Don't care. Should we take cars away? Don't care. But they're like, I so do care about what CNN told me to care about. That person's under mind control, and they're only responding in the way that they're exactly predicted to respond when Bill Gates and all the world leaders meet and say, how do we brainwash these moronic herds with the repetitive fear-based stuff, and then have them actually think they're thinking, while we're actually controlling exactly what they do, exactly what they say, and exactly what they believe. They have meetings about this. How are we best going to mind control the people so they lock themselves in the house and even eventually go take a vaccine that's most likely designed as a one shot and drop.
That's exactly what it's designed for. And
Yeah, I would believe so. Knowing these people they're bad people. And it's lost on most people today what that really means, because the movies are all bad. They're like, well, it's just a movie. I'm like, no, it's not a movie. It's not The Matrix. It's an injection. Within 7 days, you'll probably be crippled or pass away. So you really have to understand why you're okay with that, why you're not reacting to that. And don't forget, it's shown that like caffeine, alcohol, and all the other poisons make you unable to react to danger, to real danger. Absolutely.
not only that too, because you're talking about like fight or flight. And when people hear this information that is presented to them and it shakes them up, like the cognitive dissonance it's a real thing. And
Yeah.
people react in the worst, most horrific ways. And it's sad to see, but then you really see the level of, I don't really like to say brainwashing, but at the end of the day, we all were brainwashed. We all were brainwashed at a certain level, and we all awaken at a certain time. But you see the difference. Like, people will do anything to conform and to stay comfortable. Like right now in the state of New York, it is mandated to wear masks. I choose not to wear a mask. I have my rights not to wear a mask. But it's been amazing how people will impose their beliefs without even critically thinking about why they're doing it.
Well, the most compliant people will always advertise their slavery-based lifestyle as, virtuous. So anybody wearing a mask is just basically someone who not interested in thinking, not interested in research. And that's how they interface with the world. Like, that's how a child used to interface with the world. Sit down. Okay. Get up. Okay. Go to the bathroom. Okay. So when we're children, it's been shown that the subconscious mind is very compliant. It wants to go along to get along. What's the safe thing to do? What's the safe thing to say? So our ability to follow and mimic and mirror and emulate our environment when we're kids is really strong. It's supposed to be 9 times stronger in childhood than it is in adulthood. So when you see one of these adults today wearing a mask, what you're seeing is a lack of what's called, it used to be called a rite of passage in ancient societies, where they knew, okay, they knew that if we get adults of adult age that never matured to full adulthood, so yes, they have pubic hair and they're tall, but if they're not strong, independent thinkers, the whole society collapses and it's open for attack and capitulation from outside forces. So they vowed, we have to force this maturation process. So in a place like Sparta in Greece, at 14 years of age, they would put the males outside the city walls and say, come back in 7 days. And the parents, mothers would, like some of the kids would be consumed by the gray wolves, which were famous in the Spartan forest at that time. But if you did not put the males out and force them to sort of get off mom's apron strings and fend for themselves, when you're out on your own, you have to substitute what you want to do, like what your parents used to tell you to do, for what you need to do to survive. And so if you survive the whole 7 days, the rite of passage was complete. Now that the mind changed inside that child, they would come back and they could have open debates, and they wouldn't be afraid to be segregated or ostracized out the tribe. If you thought something was unfair or not moral or unethical or something needed to be said, the man who made the rite of passage could say it, because you could never threaten him with tribal-based pack animal rhetoric. You couldn't tell them, if I don't like what you say, get the hell out of here. He'd be like, I survived 7 days in the forest. I got no problem leaving if you want me to leave. And that's a strong man saying, I don't need to be part of the group. I'm going to stay calm. I'm not going to be violent as a strong man. We're going to have a debate. And that's why in the Greek society, debates were very important. Both sides would forward their views by strong men who would not comply just to be everybody's buddy. So today, fast forward to right now, where people have not made that rite of passage, we have adults of adult age who think, talk, and behave like children, following a government and media Pied Piper off the cliff with the rest of the lemmings. They do exactly what they're told because they have the child-based subconscious mind adaptation. If I do what I'm told, everything will be great. And you know what? That's an ambush. Because if the COVID-19 virus hasn't even been isolated in its full 100% genetic sequence, which means under the most basic protocols, it does not exist. And we haven't had any increase in death rates. We have regular people dying from regular diseases at regular rates, advertised as irregular, for a full criminal upgrade of every government on the planet. And the only way they could ever get everybody here for this bloodbath is through the Hollywood media. And even the word Hollywood, if we're going to touch on it, the ancient magicians like Merlin the magician would insist that his magic wand would be made from wood of the holly tree. It's supposed to have a vibrational essence that was more powerful to cast spells. And so today we have Hollywood still casting the spells on the uninformed and sedated and polluted public. You can't cast spells through imagery and symbols unless the people are heavily intoxicated with anything, with pesticides. That's why they spray pesticides on the food, to intoxicate the body and dumb down the people and make them so weak and out of shape that they need the herd to survive. They don't dare come outside the herd. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. And if people want more information on it, when I post this on my page, I'll list the top 9 mind control documentaries where you can get a real idea about how your government, I don't care where you're watching this, your government is lying to you to literally siphon your power and energy for itself. It wants all your money. It used to want your taxes at, say, 40% in the US, 60% in Canada. They want it all. That's how greedy they are right now. They want it all for themselves.
Yeah, and that's you break down. Let's talk about the breaking down government, govern to control, mint, mind. So right. That's really their shtick here, and it's implemented in Hollywood, especially the media. So when people say, well, where are you getting your information from? I'm like, well, where are you getting yours from? Because the news is owned by the same 6 corporations. And then you just follow the money from there. And that's what critical thinkers do. You know, that's what critical thinkers do. You got to follow the family tree, if you will, of where these corporations, who these corporations are, who's running them, what families are behind it. And when you do that, it really does make sense, because that's what the media is there for. You know, it tells you what to be pissed off about. You know, just a couple days ago, it was about, you know, the coronavirus, COVID-19, and now we're on a whole different topic right now. So it's always ever changing into whatever they want you to be upset about. And of course, what the media does, it's there to divide and you know, because as you know, it's easier to control people when we're divided. So
yeah. If everybody knew who the real enemy was, there's only one enemy, and it's not the slave next to you, regardless of color of their skin. We're all slaves. And if people would realize that, they would understand there's only one group that's stealing our money, stealing our power, making our lives miserable, lying to us, colluding with media. There is no division line between media and government, medicine and science. There is none. Or even the banking system or the military system or the education system. It's basically a parasitical force that feeds itself of your energy. So government maintains its power by destroying yours. And so it's a parasite. And right now, the parasite looks like it's going to kill a lot of the host. And that's when you know it's a psychopathic and sociopathic entity. And people in government have to start realizing that. And that's why they kind of axed a lot of the jobs too, because the government's going to get so dark and so corrupt and so evil. They would lose a lot of their staffers if they could go somewhere else to make some money. But because the government has taken it upon themselves to be the sole decisionary board of who's going to stay open and who's going to not stay open, and they judge themselves as essential, they've stolen our life force through money, through currency. Currency is nothing but a container that holds our life force. So if I make $101 bills in Canada, every day I got to give 60 of those $1 bills to the government. That means I have 40% of my original battery for myself. And I know they want the other 40% in the next 6 months. They want the other 40%. They're like, why even let him live? Why don't we just take all his energy? Make sure he has nothing. We'll take, he's crazy enough to give us the 60%. Let's take 100 and let him rot. We're going to take it for us. And that's what happens when you let a parasitical system steal from you for 80 years straight without any resistance. They get so greedy and so punch drunk on their own power that they say, let's just take it all now. And let's just keep everything for us. And that's what's going on. And that's what people have to realize, is that the only solution here is a full removal of government power to curtail our freedoms. And that's why they're dividing us too, because there is only one enemy. And it's not each other, it's the state. And it's not even the police officers or it's just a choice few. And that's why the pyramid is their main symbol, because again, you have the compartments that don't know what's going on at the levels above. And so when one guy snaps his finger at the top of the pyramid, everybody else obeys. And the government school system has basically produced an army of order takers.
Absolutely.
We've always been in danger, always. The police are always a danger to us. So is the military. So is even the nice Mrs. Crabtree down at the school. We've all been processed with the order-taking system. What we're gullible of is that we would never think an order would come to the top, from the top, to turn our friends against us. And what we're seeing is that if the order comes, the order taker follows. And
Yeah.
that's how dangerous this system is.
You're absolutely right. You know, I like I said, I choose not to wear a mask, and I went into a local co-op that I've been shopping at for years. And people would see me, hi, how are you? Now they're threatening to call the cops on me because I choose not to wear a mask. So it's really, and it's, things are going to get, I believe, more heated up. But like you said, people who choose not to really critically think and to like tap into their own power, they're going to get consumed.
Well, there was experiment
right now. You see it right now.
There was experiments in Russia about 80 years ago where a famous Russian scientist took some very vicious wolves, and he would only allow the more peaceful of the litter to breed, to get rid of the strong wolves. And it wasn't more than, it was on the 4th generation. The wolves were like lapdogs.
Wow.
And so what we're seeing is this sort of science experimentation in the human, where they've domesticated the human through the shopping malls, through the coffee, the alcohol, the junk food. They're just blobs of non-interested carbon. That's all they are. They don't want to fight back. They don't remember what women are supposed to be like. They don't remember what men are supposed to be like. They've domesticated this human lion into a sheep. And now the sheep is just like, yeah, I just want my hay, you know, and oh, is that a truck? Are we going on the truck ride? I'm like, no, that's the abattoir. I like the truck ride. And I'm like, man, like you're totally domesticated. Do you have like, and it's almost like they're so stunned. Some people like, and I tell people it's the same thing as sheep farming. The people who are farming us are actually, they were originally farmers. And the sheep goes their whole life afraid of the wolf, only to be slaughtered by the shepherd. And that's the phase we're in right now, where you've been conditioned to love your doctor, and he doesn't know shit. Your medical doctor knows shit from Shinola, can't make anybody healthy. And you've been programmed like everybody else has, same with me. These guys are the smartest guys since sliced bread. And then you're going to go there for an injection of an untested RNA vaccine that has already, it's elicited, I think, a class 3 medical reaction in 20% of the high potency trial group. And if you translate that over the whole world population, that would be 1.5 billion people dead or in the hospital from the new RNA COVID vaccine. But the sheep will go, they'll say, hey, look, if you want to get the vaccine, you can have your hay right after. Like, bah, I love my hay. And then nighty-night, that's the last thing they'll remember. They're domesticated humans, which are very different than wild, free-range humans. You're
absolutely right about that. I like that story you told about the wolves, because that's exactly what has been taking place here. It's sad to see, and this is going to bring me to another question for you, and then we can wrap it up. You know, knowing this information, right? Like when you become awake and aware to this, I know when I started to become more wanting to learn this info, I went through a pretty deep depression, because it can knock it can knock you on your ass. Like, feel this truth will really consume you. And you know, when people reach out to me and they're on their awakening journey, I really say to them, you have to do self-care. You have to take care of yourself. You have to fill your cup up. But how does someone like yourself that is really aware of all of this happening, like how do you stay grounded? How do you stay in feelings of hope and faith versus fear?
I'm mentally insane. No, you just take it in stride and you do the best you can with it. Because I know psychology, I know I have to keep it positive. I keep a positive inner self-talk. And I tell people, if you're at a bear camp and a bear rips through your tent, you don't have to run faster than the bear. You just got to run faster than the guy next to you. And that's what surviving the next, say, 12 months is going to be about. I don't really think the corrupt government's going to have too much time to run after the people that are dodging it. There'll be enough blood in the abattoir to make them happy with all the sheep trying to get their hay. And, you know, I'd like to save all the sheep. But, you know, when the sheep kind of give me the bird sometimes and tell me to go F myself or where's my tinfoil hat, conspiracy theorist, and I tell them, I say, yeah, you're right. A conspiracy theory is a story so outlandish, it should never be believed. And I said, if you believe your government cares about you, you're the conspiracy theorist, because that's a story so outlandish, no one should ever believe it. And that's because they're being domesticated. I know thousands of people that would take an untested vaccine just to get a cup of coffee at Tim Hortons. And this will be their domesticated sort of, you know, final dance. If they don't understand what's going on here, the government in no way it wants, like if you think the government cares about your health, but the liquor stores are open, you can get a breast augmentation, and you can get the weed shops are open, but the gyms are closed, the chiros are closed, and the massage therapists are closed. If you don't even react to that, you best get your affairs in order.
Yep.
Because that is exactly, they don't care. And alcohol is being proven to increase viral infection. 100%. So why are the liquor stores open? And they're in my area, they were parading the seniors in. The liquor store was supposed to open at 9. They parade the seniors in for their own run at the booze from 8 to 9. They opened an hour early for the seniors. It's unbelievable. The corruption. There's only one thing more unbelievable than the corruption. It's the people's they're going along with it. Unbelievable. Exactly. That they're like, oh, this will work out. I'm like, this is so not going to work out, friend. It is, unless you get off your ass, put your Doritos down, put that joint out, and like get ready. And push back and stop posting alcohol selfies on your Facebook page and start telling some truth, because you got to show others how it's done. You got to lead by example. I've posted truth so long, no one even comes to my page to challenge me anymore. Zero.
True.
Because they're just like, even in my hometown, they're like, oh yeah, Jason Christoff said that. They're like, yeah, I know, he's crazy. Like they don't even come over anymore. There's no attack.
And you want to know what's funny? It's like, even though all of this is already happening, it's happening right in front of our faces, we're still being called the tinfoil hat wearers. I'm like, okay,
oh, yeah.
you wear your mask and stand 6 feet from each other. Yep, we're the crazy ones.
And what's the vaccines loaded with? Aluminum.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, you're wearing the hat. I'm like, you're injecting the aluminum into your body. And it just lost on them, because the thing is, you can't really blame them. They're just looking for safety and security, like a child used to look for safety and security, being everybody's buddy, being their friend, going along to get along, fitting in and saying what you're supposed to say, doing what you're supposed to do. But they got you if you're running that program right now to interface with the world, they got you. Because the right thing to say and the right thing to do is going to be you losing your job, getting on the government dole for life, and then the government's going to say, if you want the handout to continue, all you got to do is take this vaccine. So you keep getting the money. So you got a salary, but you're also dead. You're dead and you're wealthy. Perfect.
It's an agenda that, you really have to zoom out a lot in order to see how all of this connects and how all of these topics really intertwine with each other. I mean, every single thing, every topic between the vaccines, the pedophilia, the mind control from the media, all of that is interconnected. And until you, like we were talking about, you see it for what it is, and you're able to kind of break free yourself in your mind, you won't see it. But until then, you did nail it there. That's the scary thing for me. It's not so much what they're doing, it's so much of how many people are complying. I'm going on bike rides and people are exercising with their masks on and driving alone and with their car with their masks on. I'm like, oh, this is when we're in trouble. This is when
And there's also an unwritten rule. But the truth, there's been many truthers that have been contacted by the higher ups and said, just back off a bit, exposing us. We'll leave you alone. Just let us at the sheep.
Really?
So, oh yeah, I know one of them for sure.
Wow.
And so they're like, look, we're not trying to get everybody. We're just trying to get, the people who get the government checks, who don't produce value. We're going to take all their money. But it's like a senior in Canada. A senior might get $1,300 a month, and they stop giving into the system. Those are the targets. They say, we're going to take that person's $1,300 a month times 4 million people, 4 million seniors we want. And we don't want to pay them the $1,300, even though we promised we would. We want the money for ourselves. So back away, or you're going to get it. And we're just like,
it's of the herd, and the elderly and the seniors are really the
oh my God, the seniors would with the peanut butter and the vaccine, some of the seniors, right?
They have that old school mentality of the doctors are always right.
Oh my God, they're sitting ducks. They're absolutely sitting ducks.
It's sad what's happening to the elderly, but you know what? At the end of the day, I mean, this is the reality of the situation. We are up against a beast that many don't even know that we're up against.
That's why they destroyed religion in Hollywood 50 years ago. And that's why they let the pedophilia be known in the church. So everybody's like full of pedophiles and they're good for nothing. We don't need the spirituality anymore. And then so when someone like Bill Gates comes out and puts in, there's a House Representative Bill 6666, and then people are
right in your face. You can't make it up.
Right over your head. Right over your head. And people don't even really understand that there's evil. And how could you blame them? Everything on Netflix is evil. It just sort of blends in to the subconscious mind. Just says, hey, we live in an evil village. What can I tell you? That's what the subconscious mind says. So it normalizes, it goes right over people's head. But the evil and the demonic sort of posturing, even the mayor of Chicago, which they call it Chirac, the mayor of Chicago that looks like Beetlejuice. Have you seen this lady? Yeah, the dark bags under her eyes. And if we did believe in demons, it wouldn't be so hard. And even the phrase, by their fruits you shall know them.
Yes.
Okay, she looks like a demon. She's telling people that she's going to arrest them for being like, how are we missing the fact that she is sort of either really psychologically unwell or potentially could be possessed by a demonic entity? Absolutely. How are we missing that? And people who know me know I'm not into religion, but when I look at her, I get so close to jumping into religion. I'm like, that's some kind of evil, something's going on there, for sure.
Well, that opens up a whole other topic about that. And like I said, these truths did lead me back to, I shunned anything that had anything to do with religion or Bible or scripture or anything. I shunned it. But as I started to awaken to this stuff, I'm like, where can I go? Where can I learn more of this? And then I started to open up scripture and like, wow, it's been here all the time. And it's just taken a different form. And for me, it's definitely helped me grow in faith, which is very interesting to me because I was more in a new age belief system. But I think, at the end of the day, there is a good versus evil happening right now. And either you are playing into that without even realizing it, or you're waking up right now and saying no more. And if you will, we're finding a new world in our own way.
Yeah, I mean, I even see the same sort of spiritual thing play out with me when I used to do drugs or alcohol. I was overly sexual. I would get in bar brawls. I would crash my car. I would lie. I would cheat. I would steal. I would hungover in the morning. I would yell at my mates. They know I was a terrible mate. I don't know if any are listening. I'm sorry if you were my mate 20 years ago. You probably hate me, but I've come a long way. And you can see it when you're polluted and toxic. You're not a good person. You're almost like demonically possessed. And even when I don't even go back. I drank once in 10 years. I don't eat any junk food. I go to bed at 10 o'clock. I do all that, to do all the really healthy stuff. But if I ever have a piece of chocolate, even for caffeine, my family will say, look, don't even have that speck of chocolate. They know that there's something else in there, or something infiltrates me, or I'm just an asshole when I take it. So there's something to be said for the spirit. Like, I think this might be forcing us to reconsider our spirituality. Even myself, who's went to a pedophile-based private school in Newfoundland for boys, where a lot of my friends were molested by the Christian brothers, and but there's something to be said. There's almost like a spiritual war going on right now, because the people in charge of government, they're evil, and they're coming after us and our children. And people really have to wake up, and they're attacking us in our own house through the TV screen. That thing is like a scrying mirror. You have to get rid of that.
I agree. I am in a situation now where I can't control the TV situation with my son, but I see what it does to him. I'm like, no, this is, because we're with grandma now. So, grandma wins at times. Like, he always goes to grandma. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. Like, this TV is just, it's polluting.
It's completely evil.
Never imagine.
It warps reality. That's why they call it a screen. A screenshot in hockey or soccer is when you block the view of the goaltender. If you had a screen door, you can't see out it properly. The word screen just means it obscures your view. That's what it means.
See, all of the hidden words. It's all the words. It's like a spell. Words are a spell.
Yeah.
Right. And if like that's exactly what they are. But I don't know, Jason, we may have to do a part 2, because I think this can go into so many other great conversations that many do want to know about and want to learn more about, because like I said, more are waking up.
Tell your people, look, just start getting healthy so you can turn the prefrontal cortex on, shut the limbic system off. Read the book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek. Start that, put that as more of a Bible, as a modern Bible of health, so that our spirit, like our bodies, these are just meat suits for our spirits. These are like space suits for our souls. So if you want to clean up, you want a really good working space suit, make sure to tune it up and make sure it's healthy so that everything's working properly. How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek, and Chek is C-H-E-K. Start with that, because once you get your body going, your brain turns on in the proper way, and that's when you're outside the mind control. You can't mind control the whole system unless you're polluted or in fear.
That's absolutely true. That's good information, and that's really good advice to pass on.
Okay, well, look, good talking to you, Tonya.
Jason, I love these conversations. Always good to talk to someone who gets it, and we can talk about the solutions as well as what we have in front of us. So thank you so much. Thank you, and stay well.
Oh, I will. Maybe I'll go mentally insane, but it won't be today.
Perfect. Same here. Have a good day, Jason.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.